Hey friend, Church D coming at you once again. Thank you for tuning into What Does It Take to Win? I hope you're having a good week so far. If not, hopefully this episode will help to uplift you. Hey, I just wanted to remind you of some of the resources that are available by clicking the link in the description. That's my link tree. So at the end of last year, on my birthday, in October, I released a brand new album by the name of Streams. Now that's like a classical piano album / meditation. So it's great for actually putting the kids to sleep or starting off your day. Or if you just want a time of, quietness or calmness, even if you're going to say a prayer, it's great to listen to that album. It's very peaceful, and I've been getting a lot of great reviews for that. Be sure to check out some of my older projects. I put out a couple of other albums, some EPs, a couple of singles. So be sure to check that out and be sure to share. I also offer virtual piano lessons, so you can enroll in that course. We'll be meeting weekly and for about an hour and over video, and you can just, enroll. Also, if you're looking for a piano coach, you can reach out to me for that as well. I now offer that service. If you're not quite sure as to what a piano coach does, then reach out to me and I'll let you know exactly what that is. It's not quite piano lessons. It's for those who have been playing piano, but just want to take their playing to the next level. So yes, reach out to me for that. There are still beats that are available. You can access them by going to the link in the description, my link tree. There's about 150 beats and counting. So you'll have access to that if you'd like to lease them, if you'd like to purchase them, use them for a podcast, if you have a cooking show, if you are a content creator, and so on. Just be sure to just click the link and get your beats. You can lease them, you can own them for exclusive rights. Just reach out to me and we can talk pricing. Also, I still produce. So if you're looking to get your single produced, a full album, an EP, or if you need some mixing or mastering done, just be sure to reach out to me. My rates are pretty fair. And, if you're curious to see or hear rather the quality of work that I've done, I have some samples that are in the by clicking the link in the description. Okay, so I just wanted to get that out of the way. Just make sure you are aware of the resources that are available to you. And also, if you'd like to send a donation, you can do so by clicking that same link that's in the description. There's a section that, is open for donations. I'm not requesting any donations, but sometimes when people listen to podcasts or anything that offers advice, they say, hey, you know what? I wish I could give this person a donation. It would be greatly appreciated. And I can also use that to sort of level up this podcast and some other things and offer more great resources to you and others. So I just wanted to make sure that information was known, especially for our first-time listeners. If you're not a first-time listener, you've probably heard this a few times before, and you may have even forgotten about it. So it's just a quick reminder. Just be sure to keep that in mind and share with your friend or enemy. All right, so let's jump into the topic of the hour. So on this episode, we're going to be focusing on stability. So the title of this episode will simply be Stabilize. Now, before we get into stability, let's first define stability. Usually when I look up definitions, I sort of just go on Google and see what definition Google has there, from the dictionary and all that other good stuff. So the definition that I found for stability is, drum roll please, the state of being stable. I know that's like very obvious, correct? But sometimes these simple definitions are a bit more powerful than we anticipate. So again, the definition of stability is the state of being stable. Okay, that might be a little too simple for you, so I decided to dig a little bit deeper. Another definition for stability is firmness in position, continuance without change, permanence, resistance to change, especially sudden change or deterioration, steadfastness, constancy as of character or purpose. I'm going to read those definitions one more time, just so it could really resonate and sort of get into your mind or into your body, or whatever you want it to get into. Firmness in position, continuance without change, permanence, resistance to change, especially sudden change or deterioration, steadfastness, constancy as of character or purpose. Okay, so these are all different ways the word stability can be defined. Now, before we get into this, before we get into our main points, I would like to start off with a question that I'm going to answer. And the question is, why is stability important to our overall success? Because the goal and the purpose of this entire podcast is building success. What does it take to win? So pretty much in order to build anything, stability must be at the foundation. Okay. First, you must be mentally stable to endure the challenges that come with building from the ground up. And there will be many obstacles to overcome, and not having the persistence or stability or even the tenacity to endure them will surely result in failure. So let's look at this as an example. Let's take a look at physical buildings, or if you're physically going to build anything such as a house, or like you're in charge of building communities like apartments, even if you're trying to build a car. The first thing you have to do is create a stable foundation, or whatever it is that you're trying to build is going to end up crumbling. And as I just mentioned, there's going to be a lot of obstacles, and not having persistence or stability or tenacity to endure them, it's going to end up with you resulting in failure. I'd say persistence and stability are the two major driving factors for success. So if you're stable, this is going to allow you to be more persistent in completing your tasks. Okay, so that's something to sort of chew on. So let's jump into the 3 points that I kind of wanted to drive home, and just, the ideas that I'd like you to consider. So they're not your traditional points like I like to give on this podcast, but, there's just 3 things to consider. So number 1 is stability in business. Number 2, stability in relationships. And the third and final point is stability for personal growth. So these are just points to consider. Let's start off with stability in business. As mentioned, with anything, if you're looking physically, just going to repeat myself, you can't build anything unless you have a stable foundation. Well, this applies to business as well. You can't build a successful business if you're not stable enough to stick with it. According to the BLS, right, data shows that 20% of new businesses fail during the first 2 years. Interesting, right? 45% during the first 5 years fail, and 65% during the first 10 years will fail. So it's almost like failing is inevitable. Only 25% of new businesses actually make it to 15 years or beyond. So some of your favorite companies that you just can't seem to live without, that have been around forever, they're only a part of the 25% of, the new businesses that make it past 15 years. So pretty much with that said, it's inevitable that your business will not perform well at some point. Totally normal. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to fail completely, but you're going to end up hitting a rough patch. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't be stable enough to stick to it. That doesn't mean you want to throw in the towel and give up. That means you want to just keep going, and sort of don't waver when the waves begin to become rough, or if the ground begins to get shaky. You just want to keep going. Let's flash back to 2020, and the pandemic happened. A lot of businesses ended up shutting down, but there are actually a lot of new businesses that were birthed during the pandemic, and some of the original businesses have even become stronger. And I believe that stability is to blame for the birth of the new businesses and for the older businesses to become stronger, because people saw that as an opportunity. The ground started to crumble underneath them. The waves may have began to get rough, but they, decided to stay anchored and to remain stable and find new and better ways to improve their business, and to allow it to survive a pandemic when everything was shut down and you couldn't do things face to face. So stability definitely played a major role in that. So that's just something to consider. I'm going to try to keep the points extra short like this. So I'm going to move on to point number 2, which is stability in relationships. This goes for romantic relationships, business relationships, friendships, etc. But I think those who hear this will probably relate it to romantic relationships. It might drive home a little bit more with them. I could understand why. So nobody wants a partner, right, who's unstable. Now, again, in business or romantic relationships and even friendships, you don't want an unstable partner. If you're in a romantic relationship, you don't want an unstable partner who's unsure if they want to be committed to only you. Or better yet, if your idea is to pursue marriage and, a life together, you don't want a partner who's unsure if that's what they want. You want somebody who knows. You want somebody who's stable. If your goal is to build a family and to leave a legacy, but your partner is sometimes unsure, that may be indicative of an unhealthy relationship. In business, you don't want a partner that's also unstable. Let's say you're trying to go into a business venture together and your partner is torn between whether they should be working for somebody or whether they should pursue entrepreneurship. Now, I understand that entrepreneurship is extremely difficult. It's not at all been easy for me, but it's been pretty rewarding. And there are times in which you may consider, picking up a job to provide a little bit more stability, which is good. It's responsible and it's something that you should do. But if you don't know for sure if you're cut out for entrepreneurship and, you're investing a lot of energy in, let's say, your 9-to-5 job, but you're sort of neglecting entrepreneurship, then that's showing that you're a little bit unstable. Now, again, I understand that outside factors can come into play that will sort of cause you to have to, devote a bit more time to one than the other. But ultimately, you should sort of have that foundation already laid that, hey, I want to pursue this business venture. I want to pursue entrepreneurship and so on. Bottom line is have enough stability to say no matter what's going to happen, if I need to step back for a little bit and, get my 9-to-5 to fund my business venture, I'm going to make sure I come back and, complete this goal of being an entrepreneur. So I know that was a bit of a mouthful, but I really wanted to drive home that point just to make sure that we're stable enough to stick to what it is we're doing, especially in business or entrepreneurship. And now let's get to our third and final point, which is stability for personal growth. As humans, we're constantly growing, changing, and hopefully becoming better versions of ourselves. Stability plays a big part in our overall growth as well. We live in the era of information, and it's very easy for anyone to have a platform to share information or misinformation, myself included, So we can pretty much be pulled into any direction if we're not stable. And what I mean by that is if you're stable, you can't be corrupted. Here's an example. Have you ever met someone who is very intelligent, right? Let's say they're very intelligent. They have really great ideas, at least 90% of the time, but they weren't stable enough to stand on what they knew. They could easily be swayed and they would end up accepting what's being said to them, even if what's being said was not necessarily correct. Now, there are times in which you don't necessarily have to fight every single battle. Like, I get it. It's exhausting having to constantly tell somebody you're wrong, that's wrong, and, I'm not going to accept or agree with it. But that also doesn't mean that you have to agree when something is not correct. Being able to hear information or advice, but taking your time out to decide what's best for you is a sign of stability. And that, I believe, will help your personal growth. So here's an example that I can give in regards to myself. Let's say you ask me a question, or better yet, I was looking at an interview that I did, maybe about 9 years ago. Might have been, 8 or 9 years ago. And a lot of the answers that I was giving, I do believe that I would give very similar answers if you asked me today, as somebody who's 8 or 9 years older. So that foundation doesn't necessarily change. That's where the stability comes in. But because I've grown as an individual, my personal growth is going to kick in and the answer might be slightly different. So, for example, you might ask me, hey, what do you need in order to be a successful entrepreneur? Especially if you're taking the route of music. 8 or 9 years ago, I might say, oh, all you need is connections, right? But nowadays, I might say, well, you need to have connections. You need to work on your skill. You need to, work on your emotional intelligence, as well as your overall intelligence. You need to remain humble and so on. That's just an example of what I would say. Now, the foundational answer did not necessarily change, but I was able to add on to, the answer because of my own personal growth, because of the experiences that I've gone through. And I was able to, sort of absorb and use to help others. So I know that was a bit of a mouthful. So if I were to summarize that, I would say just as my knowledge has expanded, so has my answer. And that's the best way I could, summarize and simplify that. And that is our third and final point. See, I kept it kind of short this time. So as mentioned, these weren't your traditional points, but rather areas to consider when talking about stability. So let's just do a quick recap of that. Point number 1, stability in business. Again, most businesses don't last. Honestly, they fail, and you'll get to the point where business will be rocky for you, but you have to remain persistent and remain stable. Stability in relationships. Nobody wants a partner who's unsure. That goes for romantic relationships, whether you're trying to build a legacy, or a business relationship, whether you're trying to go out on a business venture together. And finally, stability for personal growth. As humans, we're always learning and growing, which is great. It's amazing. So learn as much as you can, grow as much as you can, but remain stable enough to be able to decipher between what is true and what is false, what can help and what can hurt, what is information and what is misinformation. Thanks for listening to this podcast. I hope it blessed you and I hope it encouraged you. Hey, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and to share this. Share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it with people you don't even like. Share it with that person who keeps bothering you for advice. I got you covered. And lastly, if you'd like to connect with me, just click the link in the description for all of my content. I have some great things in store for you. Thanks for tuning in. God bless.